I'm just realizing my phone camera is still equally as shite as my MacBook camera in the dark. But anyway, I will go on. I said I would make a video a day, and I will continue to do that. Today we're going to talk about the transition from mainstream thinking to going against the flow, going against the current. That's the expression. It's actually a question posed to me today from a viewer and a friend of mine, Dr. Reese Hughes. He asked me today, what does it take to go against all of those pressures? And the pressures he's talking about are going into training, essentially, and going against that, and ultimately, what does it take, and how did you do it to go against the status quo, and my journey to make that transition. So the first thing I want to say is there is definitely a big pressure to keep moving forward in medicine. Right from when I was 15, 16, there was pressure from my parents and the school, in a good way, pushing me. I got good grades. A lot of you guys get good grades, but when do you actually make the decision you want to be a doctor? At 15, 16, of course you don't. But you get encouraged, and next thing you're on into medical school, and then from there you don't really have a chance to really think about your options. You just keep going, keep working, and then you're a doctor. You get through to foundation school and you think, oh, I'll get through foundation years and I'll be a locum, and I'll figure out what I want to do. Maybe something I want to specialize in and train in. Maybe I'll enjoy that. And then if it doesn't click by then, I think a lot of people just end up going into training of some description, medicine, GP, some things they're just not passionate about, or perhaps even the workaholics among us, the high achievers, they push forward to specialities in a culture which just really keeps increasing the standard. That's from my perspective anyway. And I think in medicine, there's a lot of people who really are asking themselves the question, do they like the lifestyle of being a doctor? Do they enjoy it? But they can't escape this peer pressure, this culture of progression, of going into training. And it does take a lot to go against that current, because basically that means your own internal motivation has to be stronger than the external pressures around you. So to answer your question, what does it take? I think the number one thing, it takes a great deal of self-reflection, really listening to the one person that matters, which is yourself. What do you want in life? What do you see your life like in the next 10, 20, 30 years? And for a lot of people, great, that might be going into training, being a consultant. That's what really motivates them. In which case, go for it, great. That's what training is for. That's what it's for, those people. But for the people that think, I want to do something a bit different, I want to go against the status quo, it does require self-reflection, figuring it out, writing it down, and creating that own path for yourself, which is hard, but it's not harder than doing something you don't want to do, going into training which you don't have the motivation for. That's my opinion anyway. So for me, I think this has always been lingering in me. I've gone on to the next thing, and now I'm at the age where it's crunch time. Like, if I don't do this now, I'm gonna sit on these regrets for the rest of my life. When I'm old and looking back on my life, I'll be thinking, I had these dreams, but I never had the courage to act on them. And that brings me to my next point. I think for me, it really was figuring out what was most important to me in life, or on my deathbed, what's the one thing I would say, looking back on my life, I was proud of my life because, and for me, I was proud of my life because I did it my way. I did it my way. So that requires bravery, that requires courage, that requires doing things against the status quo, and just bringing myself, like showing the world myself. And yeah, I think I achieved that reflection through self-reflection, but also a good mentor coach of mine and a good friend, shout out to Ryan Sharkey, who was able to ask the big questions, what is going to be most important to you at the end of your life when you look back? Because at the end of the day, you got to remember all of the opinions of people around you now, they're all gonna be dead at one stage, and they're all gonna forget about you at one stage, and the only thing that's gonna matter when on your deathbed is what you think of yourself. So if you can get used to that now and just really focus on your opinion of yourself and what you want to do for yourself and what you will regret or won't and what matters to you, you need to get clear on that and then decide what path do you want to take. The conventional path, great, or is there something in you that wants to do something unconventional? So for me, my journey was, once I realized that and became more and more aware of it and had more regular reflections and meetings with my coach, it inspired me to take more action. So at the start it was small action, like exploring other options. So I guess moving to Australia to locum is one way of doing things a bit different, not going into training straight away. That's a small thing. The next thing, perhaps I was like, maybe I don't want to do medicine training, maybe I want to do something a bit different, and I discovered sports medicine in Australia. So I got a bit interested in that. I was like, oh, maybe I could do that. That's a bit rogue, that's a bit interesting, maybe that suits me. So I got more involved in that, became a sports doctor for a team, and it was great. But at the end of the day, it still requires a lot of work to get onto this training pathway, exams, research, 4-year training program. And yes, it was cool, it was a bit different, but at the end of the day, it was still had a lot of the same things I didn't like about a training pathway. Having to work, being told when to work, having annual leave, things like this, being tied down to one location for 4 years. I think ultimately I just wanted more freedom, and for me that the real answer was being in control of when I work, where I work, and what I work on. And I guess, yeah, that just really inspired me to think maybe I want to do something different against the grain. Yeah, and that's led me to build this community of freedom doctors. I'm looking for like-minded people, doctors who value freedom, who are not afraid to go against the status quo, challenge mainstream ways of thinking, and celebrate that, essentially. So yeah, I hope that gives you some insights and answers some questions. But yeah, keep your questions going. If you are liking this, feel free to comment for tomorrow's video or the next video. I can talk about whatever you want to ask me. All right, goodbye.